You're listening to the winning literary show, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio, live with host Denise Turney, author of the books Long Walk Up, Portia, Love Pour Over Me, Spiral, Love Has Many Faces, and Rosetta's Great Hope. Turn up your dial and get ready for a blast of feature author interviews, 411 on book festivals, writing conferences, and so much more. Ready? Let's go.
Good morning out there and Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio land. We're going to kick off this Saturday, August 15, 2020 show with this thought from Nelson Mandela. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. Now, how about that to start your Saturday, especially if you had trouble getting out of bed, you're just so restful in sleep. I got to get up and get this day going. Before we introduce to you our awesome guest this morning, we have a wonderful guest on deck for you who I know you all are just going to love, off-the-shelf listeners. I want to ask you all, how good of a mystery sleuth are you? I keep asking you, if you get a copy of Love Pour Over Me, I'm going to think you think you're a pretty good mystery sleuth. You can figure out what's going to happen to Raymond Clark, who is the star of Love Pour Over Me. It's a book. There's a murder mystery tucked in there. He has these 4 amazing friends he meets at college and his soulmate, Brenda. If you value relationships and you like, a tight, suspenseful mystery that just squeezes its way through the story, it keeps you turning those pages, go get a copy of Love Pour Over Me. It's in ebook and in print book form. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, you name it. Again, it's in ebook and print. Just get a copy of Love Pour Over Me by Denise Turney. Go on and treat yourself and let me know how you enjoy the book. And now let us go and meet our very special off-the-shelf guest. And our special off-the-shelf guest this morning is Nanette Buchanan. Now, Nanette is a Newark, New Jersey native. She attended Rutgers University, and it was during this time that she was in college that she started writing. She worked at the New Jersey Department of Corrections, which she has since retired from. Today, Nanette is a full-time writer, wife, mother, and grandmother. And get this, you guys, she has published 11 novels, including Duplicity, A Hustler's Touch, The Stranger Within, Gossip Lines, Scatter Pieces, and Bonded Betrayal. You can check her out online at NanetteBuchanan.com, and I'll spell it, NanetteBuchanan.com. I hope that M goes in there. Hopefully she'll correct me when she comes on. NanetteBuchanan. We are just honored to have Nanette with us here on Off the Shelf this morning, and I hope I'm picking up the right line. Welcome to Off the Shelf, Nanette.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I am doing blessed. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
I'm just like you. I jumped up and had to get myself together. Remember, it was Saturday, and this COVID thing drives you crazy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought it was bad when I was going to work asking what day it is, but now it's good.
I know, because you're at home. Everybody's at home. Did I give the right URL? I want to make sure our listeners have the right URL, because when this hits the archives, we get a lot of archive listeners as well, and I don't want them searching for the wrong URL. Is it NanetteBuchanan?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's exactly how you put it out there, yes.
Okay, listeners, so when y'all go over there, y'all can check Miss Nanette out. But we're going to learn more about her even now. Those of you who are on the Internet, some people tuning in via their phone, but those who maybe you got a laptop or a desktop, you can go over to her website, again, NanetteBuchanan.com, and learn more about her and her books even as you listen to today's show. So, Nanette, first of all, it is truly a pleasure to have you with us. I used to live up in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, and I worked in Princeton, New Jersey, and also at times in New York. So I'm familiar with the Newark, New Jersey area, and definitely Rutgers. Rutgers is a big school up in that area. The first few questions that I'm going to ask you I ask every guest so our listeners can get a little backstory before we start talking about their books. So to begin, could you please tell our off-the-shelf listeners what life was like for you growing up in Newark, New Jersey?
You know, I can't remember a time where I wasn't fulfilled with what was going on. I don't know if I was like the outcast of kids, but I had a great childhood. I grew up in the South Ward district of Newark, New Jersey, Brick City, and I was active in all kind of sports. I was active in all kind of things. I went to a Catholic grammar school. I went to McGraw first, then a Catholic grammar school, and then I went to Arts High. And at Arts High, went for music, and I got into literacy and reading and all of this other stuff. And God will change some things, and you don't know it then, but when you look back on it, you see where the changes were. I had honor English in high school, and I kept asking, how am I getting this class with this honor English class? Why am I in honor English? And now I see where the connection is later on, because I started writing at Rutgers. I went to Rutgers, and ironically, I went to a class that I already knew. They told me I couldn't take advanced music. I had to take the music class that they were offering at the time. And 4 years of music in high school, I definitely did not need a beginner music class. But I used that classroom time to write poems, write children's stories, just write thoughts, write different things. And I never published anything. I just had it for myself. I could go back and reflect on some of those poems when I didn't feel good, or, going through college, sometimes things just don't work out with your boyfriend and your girlfriend acting funny, and, so those kind of things, I was just writing, just jotting them down. And I kept them. I just held on to them. I held on to the children's stories. I didn't do anything with them because I didn't care to. I just enjoyed writing. And I can honestly say that my childhood had a part in that, which I had no idea that would develop something later on. But that was my outlet. If things didn't go right, if we lost a basketball game or, any sporting event that I was at, I'd go and journal. I'd go and write, not diary style, not real journaling style, but just little notes. And I just kept them. And, now as an adult, when I first thought about writing as an adult, I still was writing. I'd get up in the middle of the night. I got to write something down. Riding on a trip, I got to write something down. Still collecting, still doing things, and never thought about it. I figured, well, let me type it up, make it look neat. So I wound up copywriting 3 volumes of poetry, and in each volume there's at least 100 poems. So over the years, I still write poetry that way. I just have not published a poetry book. I had written 5 children's books, and I'm just publishing the first children's book. So
goodness.
Yeah, those books were already written, though. Those things were already done. I'm adding, of course, to the poetry, because when I write a poem, I just add it into what I have, into the journals that I have. But the essence of writing must have been, we all think about it, and we say that, people are special. What I've learned is the special is already in you. You just have to develop it. So I already had the writing in me, but being published now is the development. It's to share. So I share it with readers. Mm-hmm.
And that was my next question. And thank you for all you shared. That was my next question to ask you. When you were a kid, before you got to Rutgers, when you were a kid, what did you dream of being when you grew up?
A pediatrician. Pediatrician. And that in itself, it also ties in. And I always go back to God's reasons. But it also ties in because I wanted to be a pediatrician because I love children. I just love their freedom. Now, in the world we're in now, they're not so innocent as we were when we were little, because we didn't know some of the things that the children nowadays have to know. They have to know about a stranger's touch. They have to know about certain things and body-wise, and it's well above where we were. We didn't get that stuff until I was a teenager. We didn't dare ask about, Uncle Joe and why he's got a knot in his pants. We didn't think about those things. But
right.
the children then we were free. We were free to learn. And as I got older, I worked at camps. I worked at rec centers. I did programs with kids. I coached a track team for about 25 years with kids, and I always loved children. And that led me to going into corrections, thinking I was going to go into corrections and deal with the juveniles, because I know that many of them fall in between the cracks. It can't be that they really want to be criminals. They just fall in between the cracks. Let me try to get in and do something to help them and steer them another way and guide them. But as it would be, a woman talked to me and she said, listen, you've got so many government issues and the government's got so much of their hands in it. That's not the place to correct them. You're not going to be able to correct them there. But by then I was already in the academy. So I went on to adults, and I did my 25 years with adults.
Well, you know what? You sound like a very positive, caring person, so I'm sure you had a positive impact on the people who you work with, so thank you for that service. I can only imagine how stressful that job is, and just seeing
that's a story by itself. I haven't written it yet.
Oh my God, I can only imagine. Now, 11 books published, Nanette. That is so impressive. Can you tell us about the first book that you wrote and published?
First, I have to just give you an insight on my thoughts. Like I said, my thoughts and everything else were that these are my thoughts. Nobody's going to want to read these. I've been to poetry slams and open mics and different things like that, and done my poems and got standing ovations and claps and can we get a copy and all of that stuff. But I never thought about a book. I never envisioned a book. I was at work. Had been working with this woman for 10 years, and, we were not off the job close, but we were on the job pretty tight. As God would have it, we would always miss special occasions, like a cookout here, a celebration there. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'm working a double. Oh, I'm, never got connected that way. She came back from maternity leave and said that she wanted to talk to me about my husband. Well, that sent all kind of signals. Wait a minute. You just had me. The first thing out your mouth is you want to talk to me about my husband. No, we're not going to talk about this. This is not going well, And I guess my look and my expression said that to her. She said, no. It has nothing to do with that. I'm going simply by your last name, which is what we always address each other as. I'm going simply by your last name, and my mother has already expressed over the years that my father is James Buchanan, and your last name is Buchanan, and I'm starting to seek out my father, and because I think I have 3 brothers and a sister. So instantly my mind said, oh, my God, here we go. Because my husband has 2 brothers, he would be the 3rd, and he had a sister. So I said to her, well, I'll let my husband know. Maybe he knows more than I do. Let me just find out. Not only that, my husband's father's name was James. My husband's name is James. So it was kind of close. So I take it home, and I talk to my husband about it. Needless to say, he says, no, I don't know her. Weeks pass, she comes back again, and she says, well, if we are related, his aunt just died and the funeral was Saturday. Sure enough, it was. Wow. He went back to his mom and everybody in the family. They all denied it. He came back and he said, no, nobody's saying they know this girl. We don't know anything about her. She invited us to her house to show him a picture of the man. And upon seeing it, they both broke down crying. It was his father. His father had passed years prior, 15 years or more prior, so it wasn't like it was a thing of, why are you guys keeping secrets? Everybody's grown. We're all grown, and my husband happens to be the oldest. So the question started, and my husband was, suppose I met this girl. Her last name is Johnson. My last name is Buchanan. I wouldn't have known anything. we would have fell in love or, at least,
wow.
had a thorough affair and do all of this other stuff and never know that we were siblings.
Wow.
Never know. He said, this sounds like a book. You ought to write a book. I don't know how to write a book. I never wrote a book before. Well, you know what's going on, and this sounds like it could be a good book and a movie. People need to know who they're related to. People need to know who is who. This happens at reunions. It happens at all big, and we talked about it. Well, the book is entitled Family Secrets, Lies, and Alibis.
Wow.
So when I wrote the book, I wrote 750 pages because
Ooh.
he wanted thorough about what was going on and what could go on. And then he reflected back to what was my father thinking. Even upon his death, he didn't straighten this out. What was my father thinking? So the book started out Family Secrets, Lies, and Alibis. The second book was A Different Kind of Love because it wasn't adultery. This was a relationship that his father had with her mother after he had been separated from the family. So it wasn't like it was, oh, my God, she was the baby. She was younger than his sister. So she was not in wedlock, it's a mistress. It wasn't any of that. He was already separated, but they kept that secret. And Lord only knows how long they would have kept it if she hadn't revealed it. So Different Kind of Love became the second book. Well, the readers for Family Secrets, Lies, and Alibis, it sells out everywhere I go. When we leave, we don't have any more of them. I have to keep plenty of them, on stock, and, it sells. It sells. It sells. Different Kind of Love sells. Readers started contacting me saying, well, what is going on with the Mintz family? Because what I found out that I do is after writing that book, I said I was done. Because like I said, I'm not a book writer. I'm done. And my husband said, but there's so many other topics that people go through that bring them pain, and they never release the pain because they don't know how. If you hit those topics, you'll be changing lives because we had reflected on all of the responses we got from Family Secrets. So a lot of the books, like the books that you named, have a direct input into a problem that we have, which is reality. So I call it reality fiction because what it does is if you're sitting at home and you see yourself or you see someone you know in that book with those problems, now you can look at a book that's fictional, much like television, but it really drives in the problem. I went real deep to get these problems. So when the reader said, hey, what's going on with the Mintz family, I had to tell him the story's over. He found out who his sister was, and, okay. I did a twist in it. I don't name characters by their name. They're all fictional characters. They're fictional places. But the twist is the what if. Every time you see a topic and you say, what if, that's what I write about, the what if. So I did have it where this young man had an affair with his sister. I did write it where this man didn't know what to do because he found himself sitting at the reading of the will with his girlfriend sitting across the table. What do you do then? How do you handle that? So Duplicity became the third of that series because people wanted to know what was going on with those characters. So Duplicity became part 3, and it is my first series.
So this is what I was going to ask you. Writing a series book, some people prefer a standalone book. Some readers prefer a series book. A series book is a good way to build your readership, your audience, because if once readers start to care about those characters, they want to know what's going to happen next to them. So then you leave that cliffhanger at the end of the first book. Then they read the second book. Then they want to know what's going. And we've had an author on here who I think she wrote almost like 14 books in a series, and she said she knew that was the end, but the reader still wanted more. She's like, no, this is the end. We're going to wrap this up, and then at the end of the family, 14 books into it's like a TV series. That, it just keeps going on and on and on, and then finally you say, no, we're going to wrap it up here, and then we'll move on to a new book. But you hadn't even planned to write. You were doing spoken word. You were writing when you were at Rutgers. You hadn't even planned to even publish a book, and this story comes out about your husband's family, and then he encourages you, this could be a good story, and so you put that into a story, Family Secrets and Alibis and Different Kind of Love, and then Duplicity. But at what point did you know you were gonna turn this into a series book? At what point did you say, you know what, I'm gonna keep this story going?
Well, the only reason why it was a part 1 and a part 2 was because it was so many words. You know what I mean? It was. I had wrote 750 words, and I'm like, I'm just publishing. Nobody knows who I am. They're not going to read 750 words. So the part 1 and part 2 actually was one book. But people looked at it as a series. And like you said, I was done. That's it. I was so done, Denise, that I said, I'm not writing another book. I was done. Because the thing about a series, as now that I've written Duplicity, the thing about a series is that you're anticipating how far your readership has gone too. You know, you can look at your sales, you can look at the comments, you can look at different things, and you say, well, did everybody get that before I go on to the next one? You know, how many people, am I putting it out too soon? Am I doing something that I should be doing? And by help of other authors, they said, well, go on and write something else. Write something else in between. So that's the route that I took. I said, okay, I'm going to write a few books in between. And then I released it. Okay, I'll release Duplicity. I started another series that I'm enjoying because it's the genre that I love, which is mystery and suspense and crime and, you know, that kind of stuff. I love reading that kind of stuff. So I started a cold case series with my book, The Perfect Side Piece. And again, if you take the twist of that title, you kind of wonder, what is a perfect side piece? Well, that's what caused the murder.
Okay.
But the story itself is developed around this detective and the things he has to go through as a African-American detective who's picking up cold cases where some of the police have dropped, and the problems that he's having solving these cases because he's getting threats about it. Don't go back and do my work over again. They're going to look at me crazy. So it's a twist in it as he solves these cases. And again, some of these cases are going to be cases of our pain, our hurt, and what we don't get over. And in that book, that particular book, the young lady is tired of being the side piece. She's dating these guys that are just lying, you know, and as they lie, she decides to bump them off.
Oh God! You know what? I can see your work as a correction officer and the things you heard. Oh my goodness! Can maybe even if not consciously but subconsciously start to come into play as you put this book series together. Exactly.
So a lot of this stuff, like I said, they're different topics. They're not all the same topic. You highlighted Hustler's Touch. That's a great one for women that are striving in their own industry or their own business. This woman in this particular story has the family that has tradition that she should not. Women do not work. The men work. And that's the tradition that her family has. And her father is telling her, no, you can't go off and become a business person. And she comes to America from Africa, and she finds out that underlying tone is the same tone that a lot of Americans have, that women can't take over, women can't, do certain things, women should be at home. And that even though they don't pronounce it as loudly as a traditional family would, it's a subliminal message that we get as we go up the ranks. What are you doing in the meeting? Why are you here? And she hustles her way through. So it's called The Hustler's Touch.
Let me ask you this. So when you were doing your work at the corrections officer, did you run into any of that? Is that some of the foundation, any personal experience that you had that when you first came in, everything was?
Yes, definitely. That and going up the ranks, you have to take a test. But then when you pass the test, they're looking at you like you can't handle certain things. There's certain problems you're not going to be able to handle. They call you in when they think that the inmate or the offender needs counseling because the woman has a softer tone or whatever. But they automatically think that you're only going to do the paperwork. You're not going to get in with the nitty-gritty of how to manage the other officers or how to manage whatever. There's a subliminal message. They don't put it out there blatantly because, of course, they don't want to be sued, but there's a subliminal message that says that, hey, you took the test, but we got the job, that kind of thing. You get guys that, want to show you that you might not fit in. You're not with the good old boys, that kind of thing. So, yes, a lot of the lessons that I've learned, and it wasn't just from that. I worked for the city of Newark before that, and moving up, trying to just move up. Well, why can't you settle to be a secretarial assistant or a clerk typist, or why would you want to be a manager of a division? These were the type of things that were always questioned as a woman. Why wouldn't you? Why are you striving that hard? Oh, you don't have to work that hard. You can do this. No, if this is what I want, this is what I'm going to go get. And you would get the side eye, from other women as well as the men.
It really, 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 really strange that even in these days and times, these things are still going on, that people get afraid if they think that a woman could be at the helm leading.
Exactly.
That maybe a woman is too weak, she won't be able to make the but we're left to raise entire families by ourselves.
Exactly.
Which I think the hardest thing ever to do is to help raise another human. So if we trust it with that work, then certainly we can do other work as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What inspired you to write The Stranger Within? Just the title of that book is like, you better get ready. You better get ready. What inspired you to write that particular book?
Well, I again, it's a topic that's touchy. A lot of times, in a lot of these things, we look at the person that's the offender or the person that has the problem. We always say, oh, it's great that they got this problem. Let's solve the problem. But in this one, it's about abuse and what has happened to this woman in her life. And I always question, never mind the abuser. We know that they may have problems. They may have underlying situations. But what happens to the victim? A lot of the victims wind up going to psychiatric treatment or taking pills because they got anxieties and stress and different things like that. They go to support groups and everything. But what about the person that has gone through it with their family knowing what went on, gone through it with maybe their minister knowing what went on, but they don't realize what went on? So this woman is having dreams at night, and she can't make the visual of who the person is, but she knows she's being attacked, and she doesn't understand why at certain points she's having these dreams. And when she questions it, it arouses everyone that's keeping it in and not telling her. She was abused as a child. So automatically our system has a protection where we protect ourselves from trauma. It's that same protection that if you fell off a bike and broke your arm, you'd be a little apprehensive about getting on a bike. Well, if it happened to you at a young age, you may not even remember what the accident is, and your mom or your dad might tell you that, hey, you broke your arm, but you can get back on this bike and ride. Well, that's where she's at with her love life. She doesn't understand why she's got this loving boyfriend. He does everything for her. He understands that she has these fears. He doesn't know what the fears are. He has no idea what she's been through. And she can't finger point why whenever he gets in this mood to be really over seductive or he does extra stuff, not just the regular, hey, baby, let's make love, the extra. When he goes out of his way to do the extra, that's when she gets standoffish, and she doesn't understand why. And she goes to a psychiatrist, an analyst, I might say, a dream catcher, actually, who tells her, you need to reconnect with your mom and talk to your mom about your childhood. And that's where she has to go with it.
So what can you describe, Ms. Brenda Preston, what what is she like? What is she doing in her career? Is she close to her parents? Does she have siblings? And is she the only one in the family? Sometimes I've watched like real life stories where one child will come and they'll speak out, and everybody in the family is saying, no, be quiet, don't talk about it. And then they find out it happened to other siblings. So does she have other siblings? What's her relationship like with her parents? And what she do? What is she doing for a living? What is her career field?
Her career is she works as a I guess what you would call clothing consultant for a big store. So what she does is she makes sure that the clothes are there and the styles are there and everything is up to date. But in the book, she's so distraught that she's barely doing that because it's really overwhelming her now. And she's taken time to try to figure out what's going on. She is an only child, and her father is dead. And according to what she's been told, an intruder killed her father. So she doesn't really know, and that was at, an early age in her life. So she really doesn't know what has been, going on. And all she knows is her mother. And her mother has never remarried. She works at the church, and her mother's really, into, the God thing and telling her, you need to turn to God. You're having these problems. Turn to God. Don't come to me. Don't come to me. And the woman, like I said, the dream catcher is telling her, no, you go to your mother and find out exactly what is going on and what has happened.
I never heard that term, the dream catcher.
Yes, there are people that follow dreams and follow, they read the dreams. I can remember when I was younger, my grandmother had a dream book. And, they didn't play the lottery back then. They used to play the numbers. So she had a dream book that if you had a dream about this, you look in the dream book and it tell you what your dream meant, and you go in these books and do it. Well, there are some people that really thrive on that and study that. And I just labeled her as a dream catcher. So as a dream catcher, she's telling her that this is what is going on in your dreams. But the root of your problem is your mother. You go to your mother and you find out because, of course, the mother knows what's going on. The mother knew what happened. They just didn't express it to her.
Now, how old is, and we do think we can keep our secrets, don't we? Oh, we think we can keep our secrets. Some people keep them all the way to their grave, actually.
Exactly.
They do. They'll never tell it. But what we think our secrets, we think we bury them, especially when it comes to kids. We'll keep this a secret, and it'll never come up. But sometimes they do. They do come up sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And her mother's trying to tell her, take these pills, take this, take that. And she's like, Mama, the pills aren't working. This herbal tea is not working. You talking. Something's got to be done about this. And she winds up going to this woman who actually helps people get off the drugs, get off this, and face whatever it is. Here's what your problem is. Face whatever it is. And even though she kind of doesn't believe her, she's working the way that the woman is telling her to work to find out what went on. And I'm just a believer, even in all of my books, I'm just a believer that some of these problems that these people have, or people have in general, even myself, some of these problems are deep-rooted. Some of them aren't even our problems. They're the problems of generations ahead of us, or, that didn't pass on the solution, or they lived with the problem and ignored it. So some of our sicknesses, high blood pressure, stress, anxiety, sleep disorders, those type things come from not evaluating what goes on, and sometimes we have to let that go. You got to get over this, let it go. And if you let it go, your spirit is at ease and you sleep better. Your spirit is at ease and you eat better. There's different things that go on that we can change if we know that our spirit is at rest. Internal problems only make internal sickness.
And you know what? I was listening to you talk about Brenda Preston and The Stranger Within. There are a lot of people who this story might really benefit. And one thing about novels, and you alluded to this earlier in the interview, novels, you can read a story and it can be based on like a real life event, or just, when I say a real life event, I mean like a generalization, something that somebody has actually gone through, although it might not be somebody that you actually know or you don't know the specifics of what they went through. But because it's a novel fiction, people can drop their guard. Their defenses might be lowered, and then that good work could start to happen as a person's reading novels. Sometimes it happens when people watching just a movie, a really well put together drama, and that healing starts to happen because it's not like they're sitting across from a therapist who's that we're talking specifically about you. It feels like it's about somebody else. Your defenses are down, and then that internal good work can happen. Now, how old is Brenda's daughter, Dominique, at the start of the story? How old is her daughter?
She's in her 30s. She's in her 30s because she's an adult. She's grown. She's in her 30s, 34, 35. Her boyfriend is around the same age. She's old enough to understand that she wants her independence. She wants to live a life that she can choose herself. So a lot of what her mother tells her to do, she's like, oh, no, Ma, I'm not doing that. I'm just not going through all of that. I just need to know what happened. And as would have it, as her mother's giving her different signs, I remember one of the things that we learned in Family Secrets, Lies, and Alibis was my husband said to his mother that, this lady is saying this, there must be something. There's got to be a reason for her to ask these questions. And his mother said, why do you want to go into Pandora's box? And immediately I said, well, if there's no problem, then there's no Pandora's box. Why would she even say that if there's no, and that's the same way Brenda feels about her mother. She's giving her little tidbits. So there's something there, but you're not giving me the whole picture, So that's when she begins to talk more to this therapist, and the therapist tells her, your mother knows. You go back to your mother. Make your mother tell you what's going on. And then when you pull that scab off of those wounds, it bleeds for you, but it also exposes others. You're pulling at something that involved other people. So, of course, pulling that scab, her mother didn't want her to know what went on, and she took confidence when it went on. Her mother took confidence with the church and the minister that was in the church. So her mother is going to the minister saying, "Hey, we can't have her figure out what's going on. What do I do now?" Because they just assumed that. I heard stories, and I've heard stories, real life, where somebody kept a secret, and like you say, a child grows up into adulthood, and they're struggling with something, and the parents still won't ever tell what's causing that. Is Brenda? Is her mother like ice cold? Was she loving to her as a young? Who was their relationship? She's loving.
Like?
She's loving, but she feels the guilt too. And a lot of times people deal with guilt in different ways. So here you have the mother that knows what went on, and she feels guilty because she was not home. She feels guilty because she trusted someone else. She feels guilty, and she doesn't want her guilt to resurface just by Dominique asking. She doesn't want Dominique's fears to ignite the fears she had because she feels guilty.
This sounds like a very good read. What have readers been saying about The Stranger Within? What have you been hearing from readers?
I have readers that have read all the way up to Duplicity, and they're like, "When's your next book? When's your next book?" But with each book, they get into, where do you get this from? Why, this was what happened to so and so, and I'm glad that they can identify with the characters, identify the problem, and realize that my writing, although in a moment in the writing, somewhere in the book it's going to get real gritty and real uncomfortable. Because the only way that you can feel the anguish and the pain and the emotions of the characters, or what your friend may be going through, or what your mom may be going through, or what you may be going through, is for it to hit grit. It's got to hit the grit. What is it that has to be pulled out of you? How can I pull it out if I'm soothing you? I have to hit it. So a lot of them have come back and said, that was my story. That was what was going on with my sister, and I didn't know. That was what was going on with so-and-so, you know. And like I said, a lot of them are standalones. I didn't have to do anything extra. I brought out whatever the problem was, and then I left it alone. But I can honestly say with all of them, people have said, so what's the next one for her? What is Dominique doing now? What is this one doing? You know, they go back and get those characters. And like I said, once I give you that problem, if it's not an ongoing situation or an ongoing problem that you could see evolving into another problem, like with the Mintz family, there were so many people that had different dysfunctions in that family. I could take any one of those characters and jump into another book. But with this one, I kind of closed it because she was able to embrace what it was. If you can embrace what it is, I could still leave you with a hook. But the thing about it is you kind of know that Dominique's going to be okay. You know, she's going to be okay. But look what she had to go through to get okay.
Right. And which can be inspiring and empowering for readers who have had maybe a similar experience to what Dominique is going through. Or a reader whose role in their real-life family was the mother, Brenda's role. They might find some comfort in the story as well. Can you share what's going on with Janet Robinson at the start of Scattered Pieces? And I have to ask you next where you come up with your book titles, but can you share what's going on with Janet at the start of Scattered Pieces?
Janet is lost. She's totally lost. And I sent this in the first chapter, I believe. I sent into Essence as a short story, and that was the reason for it. And after her attempted suicide, or what they thought was suicide, I actually, it bugged me. It bothered me to not finish the story. It was like Janet was talking to me. Like, you got to finish this story. I didn't commit suicide, but what happened next? Tell them what happened next. And it sounds crazy, but characters talk to you after you start writing all the time, and they start tapping you on your shoulder. Hey. And that story just kept tapping at me. In corrections, I was an officer as well as a sergeant of the Honor Guard unit, which goes out when you know, funerals and of family members or officers. And that particular year, we had more suicides than almost in the police department in New Jersey. And it bothered me because as being a training sergeant, I also had to train the officers on suicide awareness. How can we depict, you know, when something is not straight with someone, your family member, or something that you kind of depict that they're overwhelmed? How do we do this? And I felt so obligated to putting it out there that everyone that commits suicide, can we look back at it and say, did they really mean to commit suicide, or did they just want someone to look at them? And when no one showed up, that's when they did it. So I wanted to express that in some way, so I wrote the short story about Janet in the first chapter of how she was going through it. Her husband ran off with another woman. She had the 3 kids there. She needed to take care of those kids. He had came back and told her, whatever's in the bank, that's all you're going to get. And she was at the end of the money. She hadn't worked for 5 years because she had a 5-year-old that she stayed home with. So to the working force, she looked like it was empty. She went to the welfare office, and they were talking about, you know, well, if you can't take care of your kids, we can put them in a special home. And she's listening to all of this, and she becomes distraught. She had been to interviews that day. She had been in everything, and she had done everything. And her sister was the pusher constantly. Well, you need to do this. You need to do that. Let me watch the kids, and you go do this, and you go take care of that. So her sister was like in her ear, you know, constantly. Leave him alone and do this and do that. And it was crazy. So she was snapping. She was at the point where I tell everybody, you cannot tell me that there has not been a day where you just said, if the world would just stop for a minute, I could get myself together. Yeah. I don't want time. I want everything to just stop and let me just sit down, take in a deep breath, and get myself together, and then I'll push the start button again where I want it to start. But I just need a minute. Her minute came in her medication. And when she didn't get instant sleep, and, like most people will tell you, if you got a banging headache going on and you take 2 pills, that don't mean that the 2 pills is going to kick right in. You got to settle yourself for the medicine to work. And she wasn't settled, so she took more, and she took more, and she took more. And at the time she took these pills, she didn't realize you're ODing. You're taking prescribed medicine. All she's looking for is a minute to just rest. Her sister has the kids. She could lay down. I could just rest. But she couldn't lay down. Her emotions were stirred and everything else, so she took these pills. Well, the life-saving thing was that the man that she went to do the interview with called her, and he's telling her, I really feel like I ran you out of my office, and I don't want you to feel that way, so I'm calling back to let you know you can start Monday. Well, at this point, she's drooling into the phone because she's passed out. And he's, hello, hello, hello. By the same time, the sister is coming home to change her daughter's shirt, which she saturated, and she comes home and finds her on the bed, so she does not die. But now the system is looking at her saying, you attempted suicide.
Yes, I was going to ask you next, was there a reason why she could lose her children? And I guess when they saw that, you committed suicide, are your children safe? Oh, my goodness. Can you introduce our off-the-shelf listeners to some of the other, her sister comes and finds her, she has her children, some of the other major and minor characters in Scattered Pieces. You write some books with some really meaty plots. I mean, the storylines are like, and again, they really have a bite into real life. It's not, you wouldn't have to really think and say, oh, this would never happen. You could say, oh, yeah, I could see that. I could see that unraveling.
And I write that way. Like I said, my reason is to give people a second thought. I've done the book with Gossip Line is based off of the stuff that we hear on the news. We don't want to hear everybody's personal life. I understand it's news and it brings ratings, but I don't need to know that the president's got a pimple on his behind. I don't need to know. I don't need to know all of that. I don't need to know what goes on in their off time. I don't need to know all of that, but it brings ratings. So Gossip Line is based on a woman that has a radio show, and 10 minutes before the end of the show, and Denise, you can imagine this, 10 minutes before the end of your show, somebody calls you up to tell you about your husband, or tell you about an affair you had years ago, or tell you about the fact that they know that you're suffering from anxiety when you hang up the phone. They know you go to the psychiatrist 3 days a week. You don't want your listeners to hear that. You don't want to, but your ratings go up because now thousands of people want to hear it.
Yeah.
So, of course, this woman is stuck too. So these are things that I bring up simply to make sure that people understand the problem. Now, in Scattered Pieces, there's supportive characters. She has to put her sister in line because her sister tells her, oh, the system will never get your kids. I'll take them. No, you won't take my kids. No, you won't. So she has to really rely on her faith to get her strength together and to do what she needs to do. And God has a way of handing you things and waiting to see what you're going to do with them. So you needed to separate from your husband because he already left you. But look, if you keep swallowing all of your thoughts and not speaking up and not doing for yourself, this is what's going to happen. Your sister's going to have your kids. Your husband's going to take over anything else that goes on with you. You're going to be stuck going to a psychiatrist back and forth to try to get stable and still deal with this. What are you going to do? How are you going to do this? How are you going to go and climb over this and get to where you need to be? And that's what happens. So a lot of times we have to think beyond where our problem is because our problem sits in our emotions, and it causes us to be angry or frustrated or overwhelmed. It's like the counter that you go to, and the last person before you angered the teller, and then you go and she go, well, what can I do for you today? And you're looking at her going, I didn't say anything wrong to you. Why are you treating me like that? So know, it just becomes a habit of ours to harbor things that other people do to us instead of confronting them or confronting whatever it is or being able to put it to the side and moving on, looking at it as that's your day that's messed up because my day is okay, you know, and you keep on going.
Go.
You know, so I want to reflect that in each of the books because of the simple fact that we all have issues, you know. The one that turned me and make me, you know, like look at it and go, oh, well, wait a minute. What about the person that had this problem? And then I write about it. What about the person that has this? Skeletons beyond the closed door. Everybody thinks that that's a horror. You know, oh, she's writing horror books now. She's jumping from genre to genre. No, I'm not. I'm not. Really not. Believe me, I'm not. This is about a woman who finds out that her husband is on the down low.
Oh,
and she's like, I can't do this. You got to go. We got to separate. We got to divorce. And you have a good life. I'm not going to ruin your life. I'm not going to broadcast it. We can use it as you cheated, and that's it. So they agree, and they separate. But 7 years later, their daughter is getting married, and the daughter is overjoyed that her dad is going to be there and walk her down the aisle. Well, the wife is going through it now. What is he going to bring back? His girlfriend? Who's the female? Who's the male? What is he going? Is he dressing and wearing stilettos? I don't know what's going on. She has not revealed it to her children. She has not revealed it to her family, and she doesn't want it revealed at a wedding.
Well, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Where do you get the ideals for your novels? I know you say you look at situations and you say, what if you take it from that angle. But where do you come up with, is it, again, with your work as a corrections officer? I can only imagine that the real-life stories people you've worked with there years ago have told you, but do you get it from TV shows? Where does the ideal, the concept of your stories, they're so, like, meaty, where do you get the ideals for your stories from?
I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of all of them because especially the ones that deal with any type of crime or any type of twist in a crime, definitely, like I said, the perfect side piece with the detective will have a lot of stuff that I know just from criminal justice and that type stuff. But the meat of the story always comes from someone saying, I'm tired of this. I'm sick. I've been through this. That really hurt me. When I hear that from people or I read it or I see it on the news or I see it, like you said, in a movie. The movie may be a great movie, but the source of what they're talking about may have a different spin. And I take that spin and I develop that spin. We've all seen the pictures of the other woman, stepping in, and we've even heard in the reality television, yeah, I'm the mistress, But who really wants to be the mistress? Who really wants to be the other woman? The question always comes up, can you love two the same way? So do you really want to be a side piece? Do you really is that what you really want to live in? I don't think so. And
yeah, you know what? No, go ahead.
And when it was brought to my attention, my son is a comedian, and he does comedy all over the United States and everywhere. And when he brought it to my attention, he said, Ma, you need to write a story about the perfect side piece. I said, there's no such thing as a perfect side piece. He said, exactly. He said, exactly. Have her kill him. And that's all he said.
Oh, my God.
That's all he said. He said, exactly. He said, because what do women say when if you find out your husband is cheating, what would you do? Even if you don't mean it.
He said, yeah, it's time to go. See ya. It's time to go.
What I mean? The relationship.
A lot of women would stay, too, though, and try to change the guy. But, yeah.
It's realistic. It's really what goes on. Now, I had one that really challenged me was the bonded betrayal. I think you mentioned that earlier. Bonded betrayal really, really shook me because I was writing the story, but I honestly say the characters wrote the story. Like I told you, they tap on your shoulder and all of that stuff. And I didn't know where the story was going. I put it down a couple of times and said, it's not going to work. The twist in it is you and I went to high school together. We grew up together. We know each other. We've been friends all 4 years going into beginning of college, and we've had that same clique. Maybe 4 or 5 of us, we're a group. We're tight. We eat lunch together. We do a lot of things together. And you find out going back to the reunion, the class reunion, that something happened to me that could affect each person in that group and the way that they've been living their life. Some of them would not have made the choices they made if I had told what happened to me. So that's why It's the bonded betrayal.
Oh, my goodness. I have to ask you, now we're talking to Ms. Nanette Buchanan, author of 11 books, including she's also written some children's novels, but you didn't even set out to be a published writer. You started writing when you were going to Rutgers University. You got in a writing class, and then you started writing, and you were taking music, and you didn't need any more intro music classes, and so you used that time to do more writing. And now here you are with 11 published novels. How many books do you like write a book a month, or do you say I'm going to write 2, 3? Some writers write a book a month. Some writers are knocking out a book every other month. What is your writing process that you follow to where you have published 11 novels to date?
Well, I started writing in 2007, and in 2007 I was still working. So my goal was to at least publish 2 a year. But I stick to the same, I retired 2 years ago, and I stick to the same concept that I'm going to publish 2 a year, and that would not include this year or last year. But I'm now full-time. So after I got settled and situated, and then COVID hit, so a lot of the appearances that I was supposed to make and do and everything else were canceled. But I'm still at the point of saying I'm going to publish at least 2 books a year. So I write at least 2 hours a night. If it's not promotional stuff that I'm doing, if it's not posting on social media, which we now have to do more because of the COVID situation, we can't get with people. I try to write at least 2 books a year. And in that way, it does not make me rush into the topic. I can easily wait for, as I said, those characters to speak up and speak out. I can really get into what's going on with them in their background. So I write 2 a year.
And you know what? Good for you. I salute you on even that. Can you share, we have a little less than 3 minutes, can you share 3 to 4 steps you've found to be effective at getting the word out about your books? I know you said before COVID, going to in-person events, and I've experienced that as like the best way to really move books. But what are some other ways that you found to be effective at getting the word out about your books?
Well, of course, your own website is you have to have a website where people can go to and look through and everything else. Although a lot of us use Amazon, the big seller, we all know as authors you're only getting a percentage of your sales through Amazon. But Amazon has a yearly catalog that they put your book in. They have, you have a place there. There is nothing better than having your book stand out in various online locations, in various stores, getting your local store to support you, supporting your local events. And the other thing is just networking. Sometimes you don't have to network your books. Network who you are. Network what you do. And sometimes in that networking, people don't mind, hey, I purchased her book, and look, and now you got free advertisement. The best thing is word of mouth. So you have to go and join book club groups, do book club chats, do different things with people that you may not know. Get to know them. Get to know who's moving books, who's promoting books. How can I sell my book? Get to know those networks. Now's the perfect time. What are you going to do in COVID? You can't go anywhere. Now's the perfect time for you to set up those platforms. Get as many platforms as you can. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, your website, Facebook. Get as many platforms as you can to put your books on, and don't push everybody towards your book. also let them get to know who you are. Write some
Yeah.
inspiring words every now and then. Every day I put up an inspirational quote on Facebook. Every day I put up an inspirational quote on LinkedIn. You know, I make sure that the audience can see that other than that, look, I'm sending you some inspiration. I'm sending you some things. And with that, my next post may be, pick up Duplicity. My next post may be, check me out at this event. Check me out at that. The other thing that we don't do is we don't support those that support us. You know, if you say to me, hey, I'm going to have you on my blog show, if you look on all my pages, there's an invite there. Come to this blog show. Come and listen. Come and hear. You know, support those that support you as well.
Yes, and so appreciated, and that is great advice. I really, really have enjoyed you, and I know our off-the-shelf listeners have as well. Where can off-the-shelf listeners get a copy of your books, Nanette?
They can get a copy right at my website, www.Nanette, N-A-N-E-T-T-E-M, Buchanan, BUCHANAN.com. My website has my books. If you want the ebook, it will redirect you right to Amazon's ebook, but you can get the paperback right from me. What's the difference? The big thing is if you come to my website and get it, you also get an autograph. You also get information. If you go to Amazon, you just get the book. So it's, you know, some people are in Prime, so they may want to combine it with other books or whatever. That's fine. But I'm on Amazon, and my website has my books, so you can come right to them.
Okay, and you know what? It's always best to get it directly from the author, especially when you get that autograph copy at NANETTEMBUCHANAN.com. We have had the pleasure of having Ms. Nanette Buchanan with us this morning. She's the author of 11 novels, including Duplicity, A Hustler's Touch, The Stranger Within, Gossip Line, Scattered Pieces, and Bonder Betrayal, amongst others. Please again visit her, NanetteMBuchanan.com. And go support her and get a copy of at least one of her books. She is one of those prolific writers, and so enjoyed her interview today. Again, please go support Miss Nanette Buchanan. For our listeners, thank you for being here with us. We'll come back next Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Set your dial, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that you're going to gift yourself and treat yourself to Off-the-Shelf Books Talk Radio. As I always tell you, remember, you are awesome. You are incredible. You are amazing. Go out and create a fabulous day for yourself. Nanette, I'll shoot you an email with a link to the show when it finishes streaming. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you. I really appreciate you getting in touch with me and offering me this opportunity, and thank you to your audience for listening in.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.